All right, everybody, massive episode here. We are talking about 5 big name busts. We're talking guys coming off in round 1. A couple of the guys on the list here. I've got 5 of them for you. Everyone's going to tell you to draft these guys in the first round, second round, third round. I'm going to tell you, be cautious about them. I was the only one last year to tell you, don't draft CMC at all. I'm like, just avoid him completely. And I was the only one that was right. Everyone's telling you first overall CMC. Everyone was telling you Christian Kirk ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. last year. Everyone was telling you Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk round 3, Tyreek Hill round 1, and on and on and on. But I'm going to tell you guys, these names are massive. Like, you'll be like, Joe, how are you telling me not to draft that big name? Well, I'm going to do it. That's what this episode's about. So if you're new to the channel, if you want the truth to sports, if you want the actual winning advice, this is the channel. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. And drop a name below. Who are you completely avoiding in 2025? Who are you not trusting? Who do you think is going to bust? And who is a player that you're definitely going to avoid? Drop it in the comments below. You can pre-order 16 rounds right now. I've linked it below. The first release comes out in May. Get in right now. You get your login. You get set up. And again, the content's going to be coming out 2 weeks after the draft. It's going to help you guys win your leagues. And I'm telling you, in that course, you get all the optimal players drafted for each round, sleepers, breakouts, and all the players to avoid. So grab 60 rounds. I've linked it below. You can pre-order it right now, all right? So let's dive into this. I'm out here in the SUV. I'm doing these daily rants. I missed yesterday. I ended up getting a back massage. Back was a little bit sore. And, you get the knots in the back, especially when you work out daily. I do daily workouts, right? Lifting the, lifting the bench press, doing some bag work. I'm trying to keep on top of it. As you get older, you want to keep moving those muscles. So I'm out in the SUV getting ready to pick up the kids now. And a little bit of a not as cold day here in the Northeast. So kind of getting over a little bit of a cold as well with the weather change and all that stuff. Viruses going on. It's been crazy. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. But I'm in the SUV constantly producing content for you guys. So again, hit the thumbs up. It really helps the channel. I'll keep these rants going on for you. Really appreciate you. It doesn't matter what month it is of the year. We're in February and we're out here grinding fantasy football content as I lay out the foundation. All right, let's dive into it. The first player you're going to want to avoid, I'm going to give you guys reasons why. Okay, first player is Baker Mayfield. The guy is, finished 5th amongst quarterbacks last year, and he's currently sitting number 6 amongst quarterbacks. Now, Baker Mayfield had himself a great year. But one thing you got to watch out, particularly with some of these players I'm mentioning, or any player in general, is when they have these anomaly type years. Now, I looked at his stats: 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 365.8 fantasy points. Amazing numbers, right? Here's the kicker, right? That was his best season out of the 7 seasons he's played, all right? That is a huge indicator, right? I'm going to pull up the stats here. You got to take a look at the stats, all right? Now, 2021, I think he had 17 touchdowns, something like that. That was kind of his low. 27, 22, 26. You can see the touchdowns here. He's never hit the 41 mark, right? He was on Cleveland. He was on the Rams for 1 year. Again, he's good, but is he going to be worth a top 5, top 6 quarterback pick, right? That's something that I look at. Again, Mike Evans is getting older. We don't know what's going to happen with Godwin. Is he coming back? He had a great year. I would say, in my best estimation, that's his pinnacle year. So Baker Mayfield is a guy that I'm just not sold on, because I look at the history. I like history sometimes, repeats itself for the most part. In this case, Baker Mayfield is a guy who just coming off his best year ever, pretty much. I haven't seen numbers like this out of his entire career. It's just 41 touchdowns or whatever he had, just not his best, right? So is that going to continue? Is that something that's going to continue? I'm going to say, based on his history, probably not. That's where, he had a season, I think it was like 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns. Just nothing has come this close. And that's a big concern to me. So Baker Mayfield, I'm going to be out on you. I'm just not really a Baker believer. A Baker believer. That's what I'm going to go with, right? We're going to say that in the show quite a bit this year, okay? That's my first guy I'm going to avoid. I'm just not sold that it's gonna continue with his run of his 41 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, finishing as a top 5 QB. I'm just not sold on Baker doing it again. All right. Number 2. Now, this is gonna shock some people, and some people be like, Joe, you're crazy, you're nuts, but hear me out here, okay? And that's the difference with this channel. I'm always thinking outside the box. People thought I was crazy last year. I said, hey man, don't draft CMC at all. Never mind first overall, top 3 pick, just don't draft him at all. He's going to go down. Now, I'm not saying this player is going to go down, but the guy I'm talking about is Lamar Jackson, number 2 quarterback, okay? Here's the thing with Lamar Jackson, all right? 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Is that going to happen again? That's the big question, right? When you look at his entire career, right, he has never had an anomaly year like this, right? 4,172 yards. He has never, ever, ever thrown that much. All right, I'm looking at it, man. I'm looking at it. In 2021, 2022, he had 12 games. So I think that it's kind of reminding me of what CMC did. He had 10 games combined in 2020, 2021, CMC did. And then he had 2 pinnacle years, and then he kind of crashed. Kind of a similar pattern. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Lamar, but what I'm saying is you got to look at patterns. He had 2 years where he crapped the bed, like just got hurt. He had 2 good bounce back years, and then coming off this 1 pinnacle year where he's never thrown over 4,000 yards. That's a big concern, right? 2019, he had a good year. He had 3,600 yards, something like that, 36 touchdowns, whatever it was. I'll pull up the stats here. But Lamar Jackson is just not a guy that throws a lot. He's not a guy that is going to consistently produce 4,000 passing yard type years, right? But he's going to get it done on the ground. They do look like they're a good team. They're going to move forward. They're going to be a good team. But is this going to continue? Is he going to stay healthy? Because right now, if you look at the last 4 seasons, he's 2 for 4 in regards to finishing seasons, right? So 2 for 4. What's the 5th season going to look like? Now you say, "Oh, Joe, you're wishing injury." I'm not wishing injury. I'm not predicting injury in this case because I think Lamar is a great player, MVP caliber. And, they should have won the MVP last year, but again, Josh Allen beat him when they went head to head, and I'm glad Allen got it because I think it's all about winning, right? It's okay to have amazing stats, but when they put to head, who wins? And I think winning was a big factor. I'm glad that's why Josh Allen won because they won when they played each other. But Lamar Jackson, I just don't see it happening again this year, those type of numbers. So I'm expecting a nice decline coming from him this year, okay? Number 3, this is a big name running back. Before I get into this guy, I want to make sure you guys do head on over to mybookie.ag. Use code FFC. They'll give you 50% match deposit. Get in on the UFC, get in on the hockey, get in on the baseball, get in on anything you want to bet on. You can get in on at mybookie.ag. Use code FFC and get the 50% match deposit. That's the site I use. And if you go ahead and create an account right now, put a deposit, you're going to be all set up for the NFL season. So go do that right now. mybookie.ag FFC. All right. Third guy here that I'm avoiding is Derrick Henry. Finished 4th, and ironically, he's an RB4. And this is what I talk about with this copy and paste nonsense, man. It's nuts, right? Now, he's going to be 31 when the season starts. I think he turned 31 in January. 10th season, just under 2,000 yards last year, 325 attempts. And, the last time he didn't really finish a season was 2021. So he's had some really good consistent seasons the past couple years, which indicate that he's as good as they get when it comes to running backs. Now, last year I was getting a value on him. I was getting him in the 2nd round. I knew that, and I considered last year kind of being his last hurrah. And maybe it is, right? So when I look at Henry, was last year's last hurrah? I'm going to say probably yes. There's Johnson coming in. There's Genty coming in. There's a lot of good running backs coming in this class that I'm looking at the youth, right? Bucky Irving's up and coming, right? There's a lot of guys that you can get that I like more than a guy in his 10th or 11th career over 31 years old. Like, I love Henry. I had a good run with him. I've had multiple seasons where I've won championships using him, including last year where I had Saquon and I went Henry, back-to-back robust RB. And I just talked about robust RB strategy in my last video. But I just don't know. I just think that, there comes a time where, things fade. I know I'm really hard on the Ravens here, and they're a great team, and these guys coming off pinnacle years, and Lamar Jackson being hurt a couple years ago, multiple seasons, and then Henry 31. I don't know. There's too many red flags that indicate to me like I'd be cautious. So Derrick Henry's just gonna be expensive. He's an RB4. He's gonna come off in the top 6 picks, right? I was always getting value on him every single year. This year I'm gonna have to pass on him. Okay. Number 4 here. Just a guy I'm never going to draft again. He's staying as RB15, not as expensive as, let's say, a Henry or some of the other guys. By the way, Baker Mayfield, like I said, number 6 quarterback, very expensive. Lamar Jackson, we're talking about top 2 quarterback this year. And then it's going to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson going back-to-back. Henry, RB4, and then Kamara is the next guy here. Kamara, RB15. Finished as an RB9 last year amongst running backs in fantasy points. Now, here's the thing about Kamara I don't like. First of all, his off-field stuff, but I can't hold out against him when we're talking fantasy. Again, remember that one time where he pummeled, like him and his friends pummeled a guy. I think it was in Vegas or something. I don't want to butcher the story. It's been a year or two anyway. That off-field stuff kind of bothered me. But, one thing that really bothers me, when I look at a running back, I want the dual threat. I want to be able to have a guy like Saquon that rushes 2,000 yards, but also gets done in the receiving game. Whereas Kamara, how many seasons been in the league? Like, he's on his ninth season. He's 30 years old. He's going to be 30 when the season starts. Like, he has not rushed he's not rushed over 1,000 yards his entire career. And he's old. Like, I'm looking for youth and upside. And I would imagine that the Saints are going to bring in somebody else. Like, they got Kendre Miller, but he's just not getting it done. Now you say, well, Miller's the upside, Miller's the youth, maybe get him later. It's like, if you're going to be amazing, you're going to take over that job almost immediately, right? It's just the fact that he's been there a couple years, hasn't taken the job, kind of bothers me. He's a 2023 round 3 pick was Miller, and he hasn't taken that. And the fact that Kamara's had 0 1,000-yard rushing seasons, and he's had like almost a decade to do it, like, it's crazy. He's just a no for me. I don't like him. I on and off field, I'm just not a fan of Kamara. I'm never going to draft him again. I'm going to completely avoid him, okay? Now, the last one is a complete shocker here because, a lot of people would be like, oh my God, like, how could you avoid him? But the guy I'm talking about is Saquon Barkley. Okay, Saquon Barkley, number 2 last year in fantasy points behind Gibbs, 2,000 yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. I mean, his best year prior to this past year was like 2018, right? That was like, I think, his rookie year. He had a bunch of attempts there. Listen, I'm not into the guy coming off pinnacle years. We've talked about this multiple times. We've talked about it in multiple videos where running backs coming off pinnacle years on top rarely finish on top again. We got the Super Bowl hangover. We got this amazing 2,000-yard rushing season. Only 9 running backs have ever done it before. Again, he's going to be the first overall pick and second overall maybe. And I just had him last year. I got him at the end of first round. I felt better about him last year. Everyone's kind of sleeping on him a little bit more than they are this year. And could he do it? Yes. But will he do it again? Probably not. And, injury is going to probably set in. I hate to say it, but I think he's going to get hurt. And again, am I going to invest a top 3 pick? Probably not. And the thing is, I tend to always, the luck of the draw always happens where I end up drafting mid to late round anyway. So I probably won't end up getting him anyway, which is a good thing. Kind of like what happened with CMC. I was never forced with the decision not to draft him, even though I wouldn't have drafted CMC. I was just, last year I drafted like at the end of the first round. Like I was like 11th, 12th pick. That's why I was going Saquon, Henry, stack. And I was fortunate about that. That worked out. So for me, Barkley's going to be past 2,000 yards plus. Not going to happen again. Super Bowl, he's going to be hungover, man. They just had such a pinnacle year. And I know some people's like, they cringe. A pinnacle. That pinnacle word is such a pinnacle, man, to my career because it makes so much sense when I talk about this. It's very hard to duplicate those numbers, okay, back to back. So I'm personally probably going to avoid them. Again, it's very early. We're in February, so things might change. But I'm just having this preliminary talk with you, okay? Very early discussion here. Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Baker Mayfield. Who else do we talk about here? Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I'm going to pass on these guys for the reasons stated. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold here. I'll keep the energy, again, going in the next videos. Subscribe, thumbs up, drop a name below. Who are you avoiding, or am I crazy for avoiding these guys? I don't care what you think. If I think I'm crazy, because I was the one who told you to avoid CMC and other guys, and I was right. I'm typically right on players to avoid. I remember going back a couple years ago, it was like Le'Veon Bell. He went from the Steelers to Jets. Everyone was drafting him round 1. I'm like, dude, don't draft Le'Veon Bell. Like, he was never that good to begin with. He was a product of the offense, yada, yada. He busted on the Jets. And every year, Cooper Kupp, after his pinnacle year, I'm always bang on my players to avoid. And I hope you guys don't make the mistake. So make sure you guys do grab 16 rounds. I've linked it below. Subscribe, thumbs up. I'll appreciate it, guys. Got to go pick up my kids. I'll keep the content rolling here for you guys in the off season. We'll talk soon. I'm out.